Hello and welcome. My name's David Kirkwood. I'm a web developer with Electric Citizen. We're a web development agency based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I want to give you a look at the Drupal Backstop Generator module and show you just how quickly it is to get set up and running visual regression tests on your website. If you're unfamiliar with visual regression testing, Backstop.js is a package that you can install onto your computer using npm, and it will run visual regression tests on your website. It requires setting up a profile or a JSON file that includes information about each individual test you want to run, the pages you want to test, the viewports you want to test them through. Setting up this JSON file can be a tedious and time-consuming process, and that's where Drupal's Backstop Generator module comes in to help you, because it automates this process. You simply click through the user interface, telling it what scenarios you want to create, and then Backstop Generator writes the file for you and puts it into the proper directory. Before we get started, it's a quick process, but before we get started, let's take a look at some assumptions and recommendations. First of all, I'm assuming you're already familiar with how to use the command line interface to run commands in the terminal or shell of your computer. You don't need to be an expert by any means, but you do need to be familiar with that process. A second assumption is that you have Backstop.js already installed on your computer. If you don't, no big deal. You can use this command here, running that in your terminal, and that will install Backstop.js to your machine. And then once you do that, you'll want to go to your project, go to the repo in your project, and create this folder, tests, and then a subfolder called Backstop, because that's where all of the Backstop files that Backstop Generator creates, that's where they're all going to be saved to that directory. Just to be clear, the project root is different from the Drupal root, where that's the directory where core and modules and sites directories exist. The project root is one level up from that, and that is where you're going to create tests Backstop. So, some recommendations. We recommend that you install the module using Composer and run the dev flag. Reason being is that running visual regression tests, the purpose of that is to catch problems before they get to production. So there's no reason to have Backstop Generator installed and running on your production site, on your live site. And installing it into your repo using the dev flag will prevent that from happening. Second recommendation is that you use the configuration split module. Now, it's not a dependency for Backstop Generator, but it's recommended that you use it in conjunction. And the reason is that depending on the size of your site and how many tests you choose to write, you potentially are going to produce a lot of configuration files, and none of those are going to be needed on your production server where your live site is. So no need to clutter it up. You can use configuration split to ensure that these files are only installed locally or on dev. All right, that's all I got for that. So let's jump into the module and see how this thing works. Here's my site. I'm going to go to the extends page, and I'm going to do a search for Backstop. If I can spell. There we go, Backstop. We're going to install it. And when it installs, we can go to Configuration, Development, Backstop Generator. And the first thing that we need to do is set up our test domain and our reference domain. The test domain, this is where you are making your changes. It's your dev environment, either local or on dev. The module is automatically going to fill this value in for you. It's whatever this domain is up here. As you probably notice, I've got a port assignment, so I'm going to need to put that in there as well. Now we move to the reference domain. This is the source of truth. This is what you want to test against because you know that things are already correct here. And so I'm going to put in, this is typically your live site, but it can be any environment that you know is running correctly. So I put in the live domain there for the reference. That's what we're going to check against. These fields here have got some defaults that were installed when the module was installed. For the sake of brevity and keeping the video as short as possible, I'm going to skip over those. We don't need to make any changes there for the sake of getting something running. And I'm going to go ahead and save. Our first stop after that is, next stop after that is viewports. And there's not any work that we really need to do here because when the module was installed, it looked for our default theme, and then it looked for the breakpoints YAML file where the breakpoints are defined, and it created viewports for each of those breakpoints. And the viewport, of course, is the size of the screen that you're going to test all of your pages through. So there's nothing really for us to do here. We can add more viewports manually simply by clicking on the button, giving a label, providing the width and height. We don't need to do that here, but that's certainly something you can do if you need. Viewport Generator is for if you're running additional themes, you have additional themes that are installed and they have breakpoints, they will show up in this list and you can generate viewports for them. Installation will only affect your default theme, but you can create more viewports for additional themes if you need. If you have themes that are installed but they don't define any breakpoints, Backstop Generator will tell you. And they'll be in this list. They won't be in this list here. You won't be able to check them because without breakpoints, Viewport Generator can't generate anything. So there we go. We're done with viewports. Before we hit profiles, let's take a look at the scenarios tab. To be clear, a scenario is a page on your website that you want to test. And because we haven't defined any of those scenarios, we don't have anything in the list. Same thing for commands. We haven't configured any profiles, so there's no files in the test backstop directory and thus no commands. So let's change that now by going to profiles, going up here to the upper right and creating a backstop profile. Now you can call this anything. I'm just going to call it backstop. You don't have to provide a description, but it might be helpful, especially if you have several tests that you've created. We'll call this comprehensive test. Our test and reference domains are already filled in. Viewports. This is where we can select any combination that makes us happy. I'll just go with desk, mobile, and tablet. We don't need to, we don't need to set anything here to keep the video short. Now we're down to scenario generator. This is where the magic happens. I will come back shortly to this available languages. For now, let's look at the scenarios. By default, a scenario will be created for your home page. You can enable, disable as you choose. We're going to create scenarios from menu items. So our main navigation is what holds all of our main front top level pages. So we can create scenarios from all of the links in the main navigation, and we can go however deep we choose to go. You can go several layers deep. 2 is the default. I'll leave it there. We can create scenarios from content types, and what will happen is Backstop Generator will choose 5 random blogs and 5 random case studies, 5 random clients, so forth, for each one of these that we select, and it'll choose 5 of them and create scenarios from that. I'll bump this down to 3 for grins. Now we're on to creating scenarios from nodes and paths. If you have a specific node that you want to make sure is tested, you can type in the title here, select it, and then add that path to this path list field down here. You can also add these things manually. So click to a new line. Let's say you have a web form that you want to test, and you can put in the label, separate it with a pipe, and paste in the path. You can do the same thing for views pages. Maybe you've got a list of a directory or a list of articles, put in the label, paste in the path. In this case, we have a search results site for the term government. So we'll paste that in. And separate it with a pipe and paste the path. Now, whether or not you use a space on either side of that pipe is up to you. Processing will take it out, and that's it. So we've defined a list of scenarios that we want to create, and then that entire list will be created for the default language. An identical list of these scenarios will be created for each configured language that you have on your site. If you have Spanish translations and you select the Spanish language, then it will take all of these scenarios and repeat them for Spanish translations. So you can see that you can get some really comprehensive coverage very quickly. Let's go ahead and save. And what this will do, it's going to save the profile so that we have a working ID, and then it will generate all of the scenarios that are specifically tied to this profile. And from now we can select them all, or you can deselect some as you choose. I'm going to go ahead and select them all. If you think you made a mistake and you want to override them, you can go back to override scenarios, change your settings, and generate the scenarios again. But we don't need to do that this time. I'm going to leave them all selected, and I'm going to go down and hit save. And believe it or not, we are ready to run visual regression tests at this point. If we go to scenarios, we can see that all of our scenarios are configured and saved. We can edit those if we need to. And when we go to the commands tab, now that we have a file, we have commands. Let me go to the repo and show you that here in the project root, web is the Drupal root. This is the project root where we have tests, backstop, and the backstop JSON file. If we open it, we have our viewports for desk, mobile, and tablet. We have some scenario defaults that came in when the module was installed. And then here's our scenarios, all the list of scenarios that we have that we're going to test. And we are ready to go. So what you would do is take these commands, you would open up your terminal, go to your repo, and make sure that you change directory into the test backstop directory. That's where you're going to run the commands from. You first run backstop reference, and that's going to create screenshots of all of your scenarios through all of your viewports for all of your selected languages. It's going to create, and that's going to do it on your reference domain. Create screenshots. Then you run backstop test, and it will run through that exact same process on your test domain. Then take both screenshots one at a time, overlay them on top of each other, and alert you to any differences that exist. And that's it. That's really it, to getting it all set up. And because it's so easy to set these things up, you may choose to have a comprehensive file that tests everything in one go, or you might have a list of smaller, more focused tests. So for instance, you have a test of just your web forms, so that every time you update the web form module, you can do a visual regression test of your web forms and make sure that they haven't changed in ways that you don't expect. Likewise, if you are making changes to one of your content types to the CSS, you might want to test to make sure that you haven't inadvertently made a change to one of your other content types. So that's where visual regression testing is very helpful. And it's much easier to set up that JSON file with Backstop Generator. I hope you find the module helpful. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you choose to download it and add it to your repo, if you run into any issues, please open an issue here on the Backstop Generator project page. And with that, I will wish you happy testing and say bye-bye.